mulch, so mulching for water retention. Let me go over to the question. Julie wants to know, will any of these particular materials work? Last fall's maple leaves, so those are things that are very dry. Scythed weed patch tops that are quite dry. Wood chips that are not so dry. So of those three things, I would recommend the first two, the maple leaves and the scythed weed patch tops that are quite dry. Those are the things I would use first. And the reason I would use them first is that they're going to be much more likely to hold water because they're dry. They're going to be much more likely to start breaking down pretty quickly as well because they're going to be pretty broken up. Now, what I would recommend, so let's talk about those leaves for just a minute. You want to make sure that any leaves you use for mulching are chopped up. And here on the screen, you can see what I mean by chopped up. This is like the consistency that I would recommend. And anything bigger than this, what will happen is that the leaves will start to glue together. Have you ever seen leaves where like they stick to each other and there's lots of layers of them and they just turn into this like crisp layer on top? And then what's going to happen is that no moisture is going to be able to get through your mulch. So horrible, horrible mulch if you just lay down leaves and don't chop them up. So on the screen is what you're going for. And then the other thing about those leaves is that we talked a little bit about types of leaves. You don't want to use walnut or eucalyptus leaves. Those are things that have things that inhibit plant growth. So you don't want to ever use those as your mulch. And go back and revisit. There is a slide, I believe, that shows what walnut and eucalyptus look like. And I'm trying to remember where that slide is, if it's in a Q&A or if it's in the compost. I think it must be in a Q&A somewhere. And it shows what walnut leaves look like and eucalyptus leaves look like so that you know not to use them. And then your other couple things. So the scythed weed patch tops, I would say those sound like they would be useful. And hopefully, if it's a weed patch, hopefully the seeds are not a part of those weed patches. So as long as it's just the leaves of those weed plants and there's not a lot of seed, I would say go for it and use those as well. And then wood chips that are not so dry. I would not recommend using wood chips for mulch. I think it's like one of the worst things to use for mulch in my experience. And here's why I say that. One is that if it's new wood chips, and I can't tell if what you mean by not so dry is that it's newly mulched and so it's green, so to speak, and so it's very wet, or if you mean it's wood chips that have been out in a lot of water and so they are wet. Either way, I wouldn't use them. And so I wouldn't use the ones that are green and just newly chipped because those are things that are basically going to bind up. They're going to be very carbon-based and they're going to bind up nitrogen from your soil and take it away from your plants. And so you never want to use newly wood-chipped plants as your mulch. That's a big, big no-no. It seems like a great idea. It's a pretty bad idea. And then the other reason why I wouldn't use wood chips, so let's say you have older wood chips and these have already started to decompose, so in theory they're not going to bind up the nitrogen of the soil. However, they're very heavy, and what happens is they create a surface on your soil which is very challenging to work. If you ever need to remove them to do something else, it becomes very hard to remove those wood chips. And the other thing is that sometimes those wood chips can acidify the soil a little bit as well. And so generally it's not something that I would recommend. So of those three options, I would pick the leaf mulch or the scythed weed patch tops, given that they don't have seeds.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And for more simple and practical gardening tips, subscribe to Grow Your Own Vegetables. For more tips and updates, visit gyov.org and join our growing community.